Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Jennifer Miele, Chief Communications Officer and Managing Director of Evangelization of the Diocese of Greensburg.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Miele. Happy to be talking today to Gene James. He's the Chairman of the Board, Founder, and Executive Director of SummerSounds. This is a carefully curated and well-produced concert series in Greensburg, St. Clair Park. You've got about 50 volunteers and staff who do most of the work. Nobody on the payroll, Gene. So take me back. Take me to the beginning, Gene. Tell me how this all started.
Yeah, well, the city of Greensburg overhauled St. Clair Park Amphitheater in 1999. They graded the hillside. They put in bleachers and built the Robert Shaw Amphitheater, which is our stage. And around 2000, a couple of friends and I noticed that they weren't doing anything there yet. So we approached the mayor and said, can we put on some shows using local talent? And he was thrilled, and he gave us a little bit of seed money to get started. I think we did 6 concerts in 2000 and quickly managed to turn it into 13 concerts a year. We do every Friday in June, July, and August. And we chose a Friday night at 7:00 for the shows because we thought that would be provide all the people who worked in town, and there are a lot of government workers in town, gives them a time to go out and have dinner at a local restaurant and then come over and enjoy the concerts.
Very nice.
So from the beginning, one of our focuses has been on promoting the cultural and economic health of the city.
Well, I mean, you have to be happy with how that's progressed, huh?
Oh, yeah. We've grown handsomely. I'm proud to say that we did 35,000 people in 2019. We have debuted some good acts. We regularly present, I think, excellent acts. Maybe 10 years ago, I kept talking to a fellow in the park named Dick McCormick, and it turns out he was the president judge of the circuit court. And I said, geez, you know a lot about music, Dick. Why don't you help me book this thing? So he and I have booked it together for the last 10 years, and we are complementary. He really knows his Americana. He knows bluegrass and folk music and, basic American old art forms, blues. And I tend to like more modern music. So it works out to be a good team. So our focus on SummerSounds has been pretty much after the first year or two, we realized that it was going to be popular. So we made a commitment to quality. I decided to brand it and build a brand and registered the trademark SummerSounds. And we've had a pretty relentless focus on quality. I mean, we have an incredibly good sound system, get compliments on that all the time. And we've acoustically treated the stage. Bands come to town and they look at it and, it looks like a pretty ordinary building like they have out at Hempfield Park or Twin Lakes, but it sounds like a recording studio. So we get great sound. We treat our customers, the audience, and the performers really well. So the performers leave here and share with the other people what a great town Greensburg is and how well they were treated. And we work on doing a good job for the city. I mean, we represent the city. We don't work for them, but we are representing Greensburg. And with close to 10% of our audience from out of town, we're drawing people to town. It's anecdotal, but one of my favorite stories was the former director of the Greensburg Community Development Corporation met a lady who had come to Greensburg to interview for a job at Westmoreland Hospital, and she'd come up from D.C. and she had her interview Friday. And on Friday night, she stumbled across SummerSounds, and she was awestruck. And based on that, she said, I know where I want to live in Greensburg. And she bought a house 3 blocks from SummerSounds in downtown Greensburg.
You're kidding. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was a nice story. I mean, it made us all feel warm and fuzzy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you're definitely a visionary. The community's definitely blessed to have you. Can we hear a little bit about you, where you grew up, and your education, your work, and talk a little bit about you?
Yeah, I came to Greensburg to work for Overley Manufacturing, which used to be the biggest manufacturing company in Greensburg. And I worked there 25 years, started out as the director of IT, ended up as vice president of the corporation. And my last really big job was selling it.
Oh.
I happened upon local people, the Reese family, and they bought it and they are running it. And so I'm pleased that I was able to keep what was then 120 jobs in Greensburg. After that, I started a company called Westmoreland Online. Anybody who got on the internet in the early days was my customer. And I started that because I couldn't get internet at my day job. So I started a company to do that, and it grew like crazy. So that's when I left Overley to run that. And then I retired a second time. I sold that, retired a second time, and I joined a company that does consulting and quality and customer satisfaction, and kind of learned a lot about how customer satisfaction is a good investment. So, and found myself, after I did that, I was chairman of the board of the Red Cross for a few years, and then SummerSounds began to take up a lot of time. It's about a half-time job for me right now.
Oh my goodness, I'm sure. I mean, this is a lot of work, and it's, even though you're all volunteers, this costs money. I mean, there's a website, there are bands to be paid, there's insurance to be paid, all those sort of things. So how do you go about finding your sponsors? How do I find them? Yes.
Well, I mean, for 20 years, I mostly banged on doors and begged. But now SummerSounds is kind of, it's really beloved. This year, I had 2 major sponsors that I'd never dealt with call me and wanted to buy a piece of it. And a couple of downtown businesses that I thought would never be able to afford it, or didn't think that it worked for them, also reached out to me this year. So now I don't have to find them. They find me.
Isn't that wonderful? And so the process works where they get their sponsorships, and that's how you're able to book all of these bands and, get all that equipment in there and things like that.
Right. The funding ends up being about a third from audience donations. We have the world's largest piggy bank. He's got to be 2 feet long. And we call him Pig Floyd.
Very nice.
And little kids, typically 10-year-olds, we'll give them the piggy bank, and they walk through the park and collect donations. And that pays for about a third of the concerts. The sponsors pay for a third, and the final third comes from contributions, grants, foundations, and the city of Greensburg, depending on the state of their budget. Sometimes they give us money and sometimes not. We're happy to take it. Anyhow, so it's about a third.
That's amazing. Now, you were talking a little bit about economic impact before, because these are typically planned and timed so that people will come to Greensburg to eat, and then, possibly go over to the concert, maybe shop, whatever it is. So I assume you get really good feedback from the restaurants about SummerSounds?
Good feedback from the restaurants. I take the band to a local restaurant that's one of the best restaurants in Greensburg. And this Friday, when I took the band there, the band noticed that at 5 o'clock, every table in the restaurant had a reserve sign on it, which is a good sign. So, and the restaurants have had a bad year, and they have, they've been sponsors of SummerSounds for a long time. Some of them have, and because COVID has been rough on restaurants, we made the decision to give them all free ads this year, and that's being paid for by a partnership between the Greensburg Community Development Corporation and SummerSounds. We both split the cost of those free ads, and that's our way of kind of giving back to the restaurants who have supported us. Now, we do have a big economic impact. I think it's big. We survey the audience. We collect about 1,000 surveys, about 1,000 a week, and about 100 a week, and about 1,000 over the season. And we reduce the data for that. And using a design from someone who is in the business of doing this, we do an economic impact study. And in 2019, which was the last one, the economic impact on the city of Greensburg was something like $980,000, essentially $1 million of impact. So we are helping the city.
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. I mean, that is just a tremendous impact for sure. And what it does to the restaurants and to the eateries. What last year, were you able to do any last summer? Any SummerSounds?
No, we canceled last year. We had actually booked in 2019. We had booked the year. And then I think around March had to cancel it. And then this year we didn't decide to produce a season. It's skewed from our usual schedule. Our usual schedule is June, July, and August. This year we're doing August, September, and the first week in October. Nice. But the board didn't meet and decide to do that until April or May. So it has been challenging, to say the least, to get in touch with all of our sponsors and to book bands. And we found that bands are really excited, not only, because they've been starving for a year, but it turns out that most of the bands that we've talked to don't want to do indoor gigs. So they're thrilled to find outdoor events. And we were able quickly to find 9 good artists for the year.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm looking at some of those artists, and after the break, we're going to talk about some of your favorites. But wide variety, right? I mean, you had told me about the adult rock, the jazz, the blues, big band, country, bluegrass, all of those, and you've even gone international at some points. Is that right?
Yes, we have. We've, we try to be very eclectic, we had a rock band from Italy, a young group. It was called Fiamma Fumana, and the lead singer was Fiamma, and Fumana means smoking. So it was like Fiamma is hot. But they were really cool because they were up northern Italy, I think Milan, and they played using ancient instruments, but they played rock. It was very cool.
Wow, that is really
and we've had a couple of bands from England, a really strange band from Norway that was quite enjoyable. Had a band from Africa. And they had all homemade instruments. And when they arrived at SummerSounds, their marimba was broken in about 6 places. So I had to run glue and C-clamps, and they played on the stage with a clamp together thing that was broken.
So you've seen it all, for sure. You've seen it all.
Yep. We had a couple of bands from Australia, which for a small country, produces a lot of good bands.
That's wonderful. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm very happy to be joined right now by Gene James. He's the chairman of SummerSounds. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.
Welcome back to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Miele. I have been intrigued and enthralled for the last 15 minutes talking to Gene James. He's the chairman of the board, the founder, and the executive director of SummerSounds in Greensburg. He's been talking about what a wonderful concert series that has been organized over the last several years with all volunteers, nonprofit, no paid staff at St. Clair Park. Huge economic impact on the city of Greensburg, almost $1 million, which is amazing. Shout out to McCormick, who you and he are now reviewing the bands and looking for some undiscovered gems. Is that right?
Yep. It's a trademark of SummerSounds that we don't book bands that you can normally hear in Western Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's very rare that I can probably count on one hand the number of Western Pennsylvania acts we've had in the last 10 years. Our idea is to bring things to people that they've never seen before, and our mix of music is very varied. And that's another way of bringing things to people that they've never seen before. Another anecdote I like is after we had a country band one year, some fellow walking out the parks walked up to me and pointed his finger at me, and he said, "I hate country music. My wife made me come tonight." And he said, "But this was great."
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, it surprises me that, the number of people who've never heard a real bluegrass band.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of bluegrass bands and that are quite good. And, we had a jazz band that was a bunch of young guys called Snarky Puppy. Stumbled across them and just thought they were amazing and booked them. And then 3 months after we booked them here, they won a Grammy Award.
Wow. How about that?
And the fellow who's the leader of the band said, and seemed sincere, he said, "I love this venue. It's a beautiful park. You treat us wonderfully." He said, "I would love to come back." So 2 years later, I called his agent to ask him back, and their price had gone from $2,500 to $25,000.
Oh my!
So I told the agent, I said, "Look, Michael said he liked the gig. Call him and see if he'll do it." And the agent called me back and said, "He's crazy. He wants to do it for $2,500. He's going to bring 10 people out from New York City." So they came back after they won a Grammy.
Isn't that wonderful? That's fantastic. Now, you really are focused on customer satisfaction. And, you survey people, you get the feedback, you
Right.
and make changes accordingly. And in your notes here, you include some information that you have the highest ratings in Westmoreland County on Google, on Facebook, on Yelp.
Right.
Because, you focus on that quality. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the ways. The audience surveys, is one way of keeping in touch with your customer. And another way is to check the social media. And our social media ratings are very high. And I don't think there's anybody in any category that's higher than us, but we are on average the highest of any venue I know of in the county. So that's another form of audience feedback. We, when people make comments on Facebook, on Google, we make it a point to answer every one of them. And if it's a request for a change, it's written down and taken into consideration.
Wonderful. Now, you also mentioned in your notes that Greensburg loves its oldies. Why do you think that is?
Well, because Greensburg is oldie. The average audience of the SummerSounds attendance is something like 45 years old, which is improved over 10 years ago. It was probably 50. And we are making some effort to appeal to a younger audience, but you can't do that. You can't do that rapidly. A radio station that plays a format like WHJB can't change to classical music overnight because its audience will disappear. And same with us. We try to push the overall audience appeal a little younger because we know that we have to get young people and families engaged now. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves 10 years with no audience.
Right. Absolutely. And let's talk about some of the bands that are coming up. So this show is airing on Sunday, August 22nd. And so that means at the end of the week here on Friday is it John Papa Gross? Is that how we say it, from New Orleans?
Yeah, John Papa Gross is from New Orleans.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the New Orleans Keys?
Yes, John Papa Gross is a New Orleans piano player. New Orleans has a unique musical style, and it's one of three kind of true American music forms. Bluegrass, blues, rock and roll are all American music forms, and New Orleans jazz is unique. And you pretty much only hear it in New Orleans. People know Cajun, they know the word Zydeco, but you don't hear it a lot around here. John Gross is a killer keyboard player, and he will be coming here, I think, with a trio. And I'm looking forward to him. It will be an interesting evening of music that nobody else is going to do in Greensburg.
That's amazing. Then on September 3rd, you have Toronzo Cannon coming in, Chicago Blues. Oh, that sounds amazing, right?
Right. Toronzo Cannon is an interesting guy. He's actually a bus driver by day in Chicago, but he's actually pretty well known. He has been compared to the famous blues guitarist Buddy Guy. When I listen to him, he seems every bit the equivalent of Buddy Guy. And it'll be nice. It'll be free. It'll be in the concerts in the park, and be free. And you'll hear music that's pretty much the same as going to listen to Buddy Guy and having to pay $30.
Yeah, that's great. And then into September, I see Laurel Canyon.
Yes. Well, that'll appeal to the oldies crowd in Greensburg. That's a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young tribute band. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young is difficult to cover because they're high tenors, they have 4-part harmony, and these fellas do it. So this will appeal to anybody who is probably over 50 or 60 a lot.
September 17th, the Claudettes.
That's one that I'm looking forward to. I don't know how to describe their music except to say that it is rock and roll, competent. The leader of the group, Johnny Iguana, has been around for a while, and then they hooked up and they did a couple of albums. They hooked up with a young woman named Barrett Ulseth a couple of years ago, and she is wonderful. Their music has completely changed since she's joined the group. It is not edgy. It kind of reminds me of like Lake Street Dive, who we've had here before. Another group that we had that went on to win a Grammy. So that's the one I'm most looking for, because I'd like to, I'd pay to go hear them in Pittsburgh if I could. But
yeah, fantastic.
Their agent said that they have not yet played in Pittsburgh. So
very good. I see September 24th is Sideline. That's the bluegrass music. My first broadcasting job was in Roanoke, Virginia. And so I was 21 when I first listened to my first bluegrass, and I've been hooked ever since. So this sounds like a great one.
Yes. And they're real honest bluegrass. They're not what a lot of what people hear these days is technically called newgrass. It's bluegrass and influenced a little bit by rock. But these guys are real mountain music boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And what's really exciting is that you're going into October this season, move things a little later. So in the fall, October 1st, we're going to get to see Green River.
Right. And that will also be popular. Creedence Clearwater is, of course, a band from the 70s. These guys it's a tribute band, so they'll be playing almost all their songs. And I can tell you from experience, our best attended concerts are tributes.
Yeah, so I believe it. No, I believe it. And then one more to finish out the season. It looks like on, did I get that right? October 1st? No, that'll finish out the season. Very nice. That's going to be great. I really have to give you sincere compliments. I don't think that I or a lot of people who are listening had any idea how much time, how much effort, how much work goes into what you do. And so from the entire Westmoreland County community, let me say thank you. Thank you for doing this. This is amazing.
Well, on behalf of about 50 volunteers, I'll say you're welcome.
That's great. I hope that this spreads the word a little bit more, although it doesn't seem like you really need our help to spread the word, but certainly good to keep it out in front of everybody, especially with a later concert this year. I think it sounds wonderful. Gene James, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jen.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.